Welcome to the Richmond Leadership Lab, featuring business and nonprofit leaders across Richmond, Virginia. Produced and hosted by Filmspire and BenX.
First episode, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
first episode we're
episode.
doing this. This is a new setup this year in the studio. So, again, Christian Mosier is here with me as my co-host, as you all know, who are listeners. Christian is the CEO of BenX Consulting Group. Takes care of all your employee benefit needs, things like that. So Filmspire, we take care of all your storytelling, video production needs, and Richmond Podcast Studio. If you want to start a podcast, we can help you launch it, get to episode 1 with our strategy sessions, or record all your episodes with us and have some great options with that for marketing and managing your show too. But enough about that. We're not here to talk about us. We're here to talk to Wes Gallup. He is the Chief Operations Officer at Cary Street Partners. Wes, welcome to the Richmond Leadership Lab. Thanks for being our first guest for season 2.
I'm thrilled to be here. Hopefully I start off on a good note and the momentum keeps on going.
Absolutely.
We have all the confidence in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
After the first 5 minutes, you're like, why did we do this with Wes?
Why did we do this? Exactly. How's 2026 starting for you, man?
It's exciting. It's a moment of reflection because we're at an interesting point in our company's lifespan, and I think it's full of optimism, but also challenge.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it fun.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Can
Staying
you
up late at night.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Just real quick, can you tell us Cary Street Partners, who you are, what you guys do, and just tell us a little bit about Cary Street Partners for a second, for those who have never heard of
Of course, yes. We are a wealth management firm. We're a Barron's Top 100 firm, so that's exciting, and we've held that ranking for some time now. It's important to us. We're just under $13 billion in total assets, which is, it's a good number. It's the world of consolidation and wealth management is rapidly accelerating, so $13 billion is still meaningful, but we want to do more, and we expect to do more. We have about 80 advisors across 20 offices, 7 states. So we're not just a Richmond firm, although we started that way. And I'm happy to go into the detail of the history of the firm, which predated me. But yeah, just super exciting. We serve, our belief is we want to focus on client service in every possible way. And where we think we're different is we believe we build an environment where advisors and clients can be met where they want to be met. And I think that's something that's somewhat unique in the space right now, particularly with the level of consolidation we're seeing. It's easier and easier to kind of put advisors and clients in a box and say, this is commoditized. And we're trying to take an opposite approach and basically say, we serve 2 client constituencies, our end fee-paying clients, of course, who work with us to establish their financial needs, but also our advisors. And if we can serve and support our advisors, we feel like the advisors are best equipped to know how to serve the clients. And that's our mission. That's our mantra. We look to continue to grow and build.
That's awesome.
So how long, talk to us a little bit about when you joined the team. Actually, take it back one step. Give us a couple minutes. Like, did you grow up in Richmond? What was your, past, and then all the way up to, joining Cary Street Partners?
Yeah, regrettably, I did not grow up in Richmond. Having been here for 5 years, I love it. Yeah. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and my father was an accountant, so I always had an interest in personal finance. I think that's probably part of the reason why I'm here today talking to you. And also, I basically had this natural inclination for finance and business. And so I went to the University of Texas, where I both did my undergrad and master's in business, which was exciting. And it positioned me. I love the school. Obviously, I bleed burnt orange, so that's something that maybe people don't like when they drive by my car and look at the bumper sticker. But it is what it is.
Baby.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it positioned me really in a great spot, and it's really just kind of built from there, to be honest. I started my career on Wall Street with an investment banking firm called Lazard, which was, I don't know if either of you know of that firm, but think Goldman Sachs or Merrill Lynch, any of the major investment banks. Lazard was more of a boutique firm, which was really focused purely on corporate advisory services. So other investment banks might think about equity underwriting, debt underwriting, and more about kind of capital balance sheet items, whereas Lazard was purely focused on advice. And it's interesting, you don't realize when you're in positions how much those positions will impact the trajectory of where you end up. But really that ethos of advice and pure objective advice has really kind of stayed with me throughout my career, and it's something that I've relied on greatly. I didn't see the sun for 2 years because you basically work like a dog.
I was going to ask, what was that like working on Wall Street, just a grind?
Yeah, it's incredible. There's no position like it, I think, as a young individual coming out of college and having that platform for growth. I mean, I was sitting in rooms, probably not playing a critical role as a kind of earlier career individual in that space, but I was sitting with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies even today, and that is something you just don't get when you're 25 years old.
Yeah.
And so it was incredible, but it was a tremendous amount of work. I could probably do anything on an Excel keyboard without a mouse, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But moved on from that just because I had an opportunity to move into alternative investments. So I started in kind of a private equity hedge fund-like environment where I wanted to see more durable impacts of what I was doing. So one of the things that challenged me with investment banking was it's very transactional. It's you get in, you provide great advice, and then you leave. And someone else has to basically go in and actually execute all of it. And so I said, okay, let me go further down the road or further down the kind of the lifespan of that conversation and that effort. And that was private equity. It still kind of wasn't quite long enough, but it gave me a longer tenure. But the shareholders in that space at the time were very impatient, I would argue. And we were looking at quarterly returns, whereas if you're investing in a company, you really need to think about 5-year windows, not 2-quarter windows or 3-quarter windows, et cetera. And so I left that opportunity. At the same time, the great financial crisis was happening. And, it's always funny, right? You plan and then life happens and it totally takes you in a different direction. It was happy, but the world was really kind of interestingly changing, and our fund was a source of liquidity for a lot of our limited partners. And we had a choice. We could throw up the gates, meaning we could restrict liquidity, even though our contract very clearly said we could not. But a lot of firms were doing that. And it was my first experience in life about kind of a prisoner's dilemma. It was, do you focus on what you need to do to salvage that moment, or do you do what you know is right? But it may bring you an outcome that you don't desire. And I feel like we did what was right, and I stand behind that. And that wasn't just my decision, but so we were in a position where we were a source of liquidity, and because of that, my managing director kind of came to me and said, "Listen, I don't know what the future is going to do, but you may want to think about something else because it's going to get lean." And it got lean for a lot of people. I mean, there was a lot of pain, as we know, and thankfully, I didn't experience it quite as much as others. But I moved from that role, and I went to my wife at the time, and I said, or my wife, who at the time is still my wife. I don't know if I said that. I was going back to
still love you very much, honey.
The first job. She was my fiance at the time. Now my wife of almost 20 years, which is incredible.
Nice. Wow.
And I said, "Hey, babe, how would you like to move to Beverly Hills, California?" And it wasn't a hard sell, as you can imagine. There were other conversations that I had later on about moving to places, and we'll get to that. But definitely, it was a challenge. It was not a challenge to get her to really engage. And we moved there. We lived there for 10 years. It was a wonderful experience. I'm intertwining leadership throughout this, I promise. But I worked for a wonderful family that had started kind of a single-family office and then built to a multifamily office.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't realize how lucky I was at the time because it was really a technology company with a wealth management overlay. And it was my first exposure to wealth management where I said, now I get to really access that longer duration timeline and be with clients and focus on that altruistic element of giving those clients peace of mind that they're going to get that financial goal met that they desire or the financial goals met. And so that was a big deal for me. At the same time, it put me squarely in an operational role, which at the time I really hadn't had because it was more transactional up to that point. And that was exciting, really exciting. I did that for 10 years. I have wonderful relationships. Adam Shecky, who runs that firm, is a wonderful individual, wonderful leader. And but it was time to make a move back to Texas. So I moved back to Texas and I started in another smaller, a little bit smaller RIA. I did that for a few years and then I started my own wealth management firm, believe it or not, from an entrepreneurial interest. And all of that circuitously comes around to Cary Street Partners. I was working on my own, building what I could build, trying to focus on sales and growth. And through a relationship that I had back in the hedge fund days, all kind of private equity hedge fund days, I was introduced to Cary Street Partners, a Richmond-based firm at the time, and the rest is history. And I can get into lots of different ways we can talk about that. But I'll pause because I'm doing too much talking.
Yeah. No, you're completely fine. So you started a company, and it was really just, when you say wealth management, you essentially just mean like you were managing assets, you were managing, you were essentially kind of being a financial planner, financial advisor on that side. On the
which time frame are you referring to?
When you started the wealth management company.
My own?
Yeah.
Yeah, so at its I'm a certified financial planner. I don't know. Do you know what the CFP is? Okay, so
I do, but like for someone who maybe doesn't,
of course,
thanks.
Yeah, of course. So the CFP board certifies individuals with a certified financial planner license, which establishes the required fiduciary standard of any CFP. So when you're working with a client, the industry has a lot of jargon and has had a lot of jargon and evolves over time. But the reality is our firm believes in a fiduciary standard, which means that when we're sitting with a client, we are never offering up a product or a service that does not benefit the client ahead of anything else. And that's really the goal when I sit with clients, and I have very few clients now, but our advisors really believe in that standard of putting the client first. And there have been significant movements in our industry over time where it was suitability, and now there's Reg BI, and there's all kinds of other things that, again, essentially kick around. But it's elevating the standard of service that a client receives when they work with a CFP, and it's kind of a mark of for lack of a better phrase, certainty that you're going to receive fiduciary advice as a client.
Yeah, because it's not easy. Because I've had a couple buddies that went through the process, and it is not an easy.
Yeah,
it's
not easy.
Oh, I'll study for 2 months, and here you go. No.
Yeah,
it's a long process.
Constantly studying. And
that's right.
Yeah, it's
next
multi-year, right?
Yeah.
Like multi-year,
Yeah. So there's a curriculum that you study now. Because of my business school, I was opting out of some of the kind of more core fundamental curriculum, but then you get into other items where they are specific to personal financial planning.
Yeah.
And at the time that I was going through school, now it's changed a little bit, but that was 20 years ago. But the reality is now, I mean, at that time, you didn't have some of the estate planning, tax planning, the rigor that some of the programs now have. And so I had to take those. And then you have to take an exam. And then you have to have a work experience requirement. So, and that's, I believe it's 18 months, don't hold me to that. But you have to work in an environment where you are serving clients or in some sort of tangential service of serving clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to it. And, it's not taking a quick exam over a weekend that you study and all of a sudden now you're a CFP.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so you joined Cary Street Partners. Did you join as more on the operations side? Did you join as more of an advisor? Because you've been there, you said 5 years now?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I've been there about 6 years. So, going on 7, in fact, actually. So I started in 2019, and now I guess it's now 2026. So you can claim 6.5, 7, however you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, I started at Cary Street Partners with 2 mandates. The first mandate was continue to grow what I was building, which quickly changed, and I'll get to the reasons why. But the second mandate was to grow a relationship with our Texas offices, which were part of the firm from a 2013 acquisition that was done that predated me. But you have a Richmond-based firm with primarily an East Coast presence and these offices in Texas that felt some dislocation, I would say, from the rest of the firm. And so there were really 2 mandates with that role. The first, I came in as what was titled as a regional manager, but essentially what that meant was I was meeting with those advisors, learning about what they needed, what they wanted, what worked for them, what didn't work for them, really trying to be an advocate on behalf of those advisors that I could then carry back to leadership of Cary Street at the time to say, hey, here are some things that I think we can do to implement greater success in the office. And then the other element was finding other advisors and teams that may want to join, which again is continuing to be in one of our largest mandates as a firm today. One thing that changed was COVID.
Yeah.
I kind of started in the late 2019, and the ability to get out and meet people obviously ended quickly.
Yeah.
And so that was a moment in my career where there was a major pivot.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I can get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, walk us through that.
Walk us through that.
Yeah.
What was that
Sure.
like?
Yeah. So,
because that's really affecting, because you've been tasked to basically like bring people more into the fold, it seems, like make them feel more connected.
That's right.
Interconnected, while also just trying to recruit, essentially. And now you get hit with a global pandemic and forget about face-to-face.
And that's part of the challenge, right? It's how do you build connectivity and meet that mandate at a time when everybody was looking to isolate to protect themselves, which is totally understandable. I had another kind of personal impact at that time. My son, who was 4 years old, was diagnosed with cancer, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. He's great now, thank God. But that was a major impact to my wife and I. And I was relatively new in a role. The world was shutting down. And now I had an immunocompromised son. And
so not stressful at all.
Not stressful at all. No, you see this gray hair? I'm lucky I have hair. But interestingly, it really made my marriage much stronger because, my wife and I said from that very moment, we were like, we're going to bond together. We're going to get through this. We're going to protect him. We're going to basically be stronger for it. And I think those are points in life where when you're hit with something unexpected, you have two choices. You either back down and say, woe is me. I don't know why I don't know this happened to me. Or you say, you know what, we're going to go through it and, it'll make us stronger. And we've taken that second approach. And, and that was exciting. But that led to a lot of implications at work because at the same time that I was working with my son to get him the medical care he needed, which incidentally the nonprofit that I care about here is Connor's Heroes, which supports pediatric cancer, and it's a big. When we first moved here, they were huge supporters of us and continue to provide us support. So, plug for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But when we had honest conversations, I went to, at the time, the COO, who I now sit in his seat and is now our president, and I said, I can't do the job that I was kind of expected to do. So give me your hardest operational problem. What is something you have across the firm that can be done virtually that that I can help alleviate a burden? And interestingly, in April of 2019, the firm had made a major shift. To take you a little bit back through the history of Cary Street, it started as an investment banking firm, which is ironic since that's how my career started. But it was corporate advisory, working with, started in 2002, 2001 window, and supporting firms here in Richmond. And in 2007, it really made a pretty significant pivot into wealth management. But it was on what at the time was the Wachovia platform. And then because of the financial crisis, everything, Wells Fargo bought Wachovia. And so it became a Wells Fargo firm for all intents and purposes. So all of our clients, save a few exceptions, were on that Wells Fargo platform. That's important because in 2019, and it had continued to grow really on that Wells Fargo platform because it's what the firm knew. In 2019, there was an acquisition in Morristown, New Jersey, Summit, New Jersey at the time, since moved to Morristown, and it was exposing the firm to Schwab, to Fidelity, to a fee-only world, an RIA, independent RIA world that was really, I wouldn't say antithetical, but wildly different in how the vernacular, how business models are managed. It was just a major shift. It was a strategic shift in the right direction because that's where the space has moved to. So I give a tremendous amount of credit to Joe at the time, who's our CEO, to really to identify that and execute.
But big adjustment. Yeah.
Big adjustment, yeah. And one of the things we realized was it was just pure luck. And I say all the time, I'd rather to be lucky and in a great position than to be smart. And I'm reasonably smart, but I've been extremely lucky and blessed. And I would say that my skill set worked so well for that moment because for the last 14 years at that point, I had been working in an independent RIA environment, starting with that firm out in LA. And I knew it was so technologically focused, and I saw technology disrupting the industry, and I just said, this is just a beautiful marriage.
Yeah.
And so that was a moment where I basically began to take ownership of that entire integration of that team, managing them, working with all of the individual advisors, understanding who had influence, supporting the senior advisors, and my relationship with the Austin advisors and the San Antonio advisors, those Texas advisors, continued to stay strong. But that was kind of the initial initial pivot that I had to what I would say my role is today. And it's just kind of exploded from there because we have continued to grow. And as we've grown on that, what I'll call independent RIA trajectory. And it's been a great run.
Wow.
So you went to the current COO and said, what is your toughest challenge operationally?
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to attack it.
That's right. Yeah. CEO and president, who at the time, Walter Bain, he was the CEO, and now he's the president because I sit in his seat. And yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. I said, I want to add maximum value. And how do I add maximum value in a time when the world is really in a unique position of isolation? But how do we keep moving forward? I guess that goes back to that ethos of you can either accept where you are and try to find ways to move forward, or hunker down and hope the world will solve it for you. And I tend to take the former approach. I tend to want to help drive growth, and how do we get engaged? And otherwise I feel like I'm not doing my job.
Yeah. Wow. A question that kind of, I think, will help transition us from early career to kind of getting more where you are now. Looking back on your past, who's a past leader that you really look up to that maybe shaped you in understanding what it means to be a good leader and things like that? Maybe a former boss, a former leader, coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's that been for you, and what's their big takeaway that you've learned from them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Taylor. I would say I've had a lot of great leaders, but when I was at a point in my early career that was most important for me to really grow was when I was out in the firm in LA. Okay. And the owner of that firm, Adam Checky, and the Checky family, wonderful family, it was a startup-like environment. And interestingly, for a long time, I've really operated in startup-like environments. If you think about the history of startup kind of in LA and then moving to Austin, and that was a slightly smaller firm that was growing, and then starting my own. So it's where I like to operate. And now Cary Street is well beyond a startup-like environment. So it's interesting to kind of manage that, but I digress. You were asking about the leadership moment. What I would say is, or kind of an inflection point, that was a moment. It was about 5-6 years into that role. I was serving as the chief operating officer of that company, and I was put in a position where that didn't mean a whole lot, COO of that company, because there were like 14 people, and 9 of them were computer scientists, and we had a few salespeople. Interestingly, it was a absolutely phenomenal company, but I hadn't really managed anyone up to that point. And I was put in a position where I was asked to manage a team. And boy, did I fail.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I'll get into. Yeah, absolutely. So, I thought my job as a manager was to tell people what they needed to do, was to look through our goals in that time and then articulate to the people that reported to me. And I was very hierarchical thinking because that's just how I read about it in cases in business school. And it was a tremendous learning experience. And I said to myself, my job is to tell these people what their job is.
Yeah.
And I basically lost faith of everyone that was reporting to me. They were all trying to go above me because I was such an obstacle to empowering them to have autonomy and grow on their own. And that was such a critical moment because Adam sat down with me, and instead of basically turning it into a negative consequence, he took that opportunity to really say, let me tell you how I look at it, not this is how you have to do it. And I thought that was a really interesting, but we met and we said, this is how I look at it. And he actually gave me a book called by Napoleon Hill, which is an interesting leadership book. If I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately, but there were some just wonderful elements in there, which were about your job as a manager is to empower the people that work with you. And I tend to like to say not report to you, but work with you, because I think of things as an ecosystem, and everyone has an important job. And the goal is how do you elevate the people around you so that they can then go out and manage their own teams and really drive that leverage into the system. And that was a big inflection point for me.
Cool. Great answer.
And I'm telling you what, that is a big inflection point.
Yeah.
As well, right? And a big growth challenge and learning challenge. Because I think there's not really many manuals, right? There's books, but there's not really a manual saying like, hey, here's how you're a great leader, right?
Yeah.
And it changes. Like I'm sure the type of leader you are today is even different than 2 years ago, right? Let alone a decade ago.
Of course, yeah.
How have you seen your leadership? Obviously, that's an inflection point. But even at Cary Street, how have you seen your leadership grow and evolve as the firm, right, is growing, new team members? Because you guys have really expanded, I know, in the last few years as well.
We have, yeah. Yeah, so it's a great question, Christian. What I would say is that was leadership within a relatively defined scope. Cary Street is growing so rapidly and the space around us is consolidating so significantly that one of the primary tasks of someone running a firm day to day is how do you elevate a much broader base of individuals, allow them to have an environment that lets them grow and provides an environment where they can grow to meet their aspirations. And the scope is so much broader. The aperture is so much wider now. Also, we take on a lot of new individuals through acquisition and through teams joining us, et cetera. And our ethos is not, let's find synergies in there, right? If you go back to the old business school model,
synergies,
and going back, I used to love when we would go through the term sheet on a deck in investment banking, and there was a big expense line. And it was synergies, and what that primarily means is that you're going to cut people. Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest. Let's call it what it is.
That just unlocked a memory for me because I think it was just after college. I read, I think it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I remember in that book it said the word synergy. At that time, I was like, "What is synergy?"
Synergy? It's such a polite, delicate word for something that's not polite and delicate for the most part, and it's so funny. And
we have a lot of synergy right now, though.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it can be positioned in a positive way. I would say there's some good synergy here. But no, all things considered, all kidding aside, it's a mandate for our firm. When you join us, we want to find a place for you. And you talked about how does your leadership, how has it changed, how has it shifted? I would say that when teams join us now, one of the first conversations, one I love to have, one of the first conversations is I sit with them and say, forget where you are right now. Where do you want to be? Like, is this exactly where you want to be? Because that's phenomenal. You're probably 0.1% of the American population, but keep running.
Yeah.
Because at that point, work is not work, work is joy. And so how do we drive that conversation of getting work to joy? How do we build and empower those people around us? And so for me, it's having an honest conversation where they feel heard and they feel they have a voice. And I know those two sound similar, but I think of them as slightly mutually exclusive because people can feel like they have a forum to speak, but if they don't see action happening after that, after those efforts, they're going to lose faith that they're
going to fall flat.
Exactly. Totally. You got it. And so we spend an inordinate amount of time sitting with individuals who join us and having those conversations and just having that one question and then just shutting up and listening. Tell me, I know where you are. Where do you want to be? What do you want to? You now have a platform at Cary Street that's so much broader and so much more open. And that's no fault of where you are. It's just the scope. Again, the aperture has widened. We're growing. There's new opportunities every day. How do we position you in a position of strength and growth and interest? Because then we're going to make work joy. And that's part of our mandate. We have core values, and one of our core values, probably my favorite, is continuous improvement. My focus every day is to come in and say, how do we continually improve? And part of it is it's never perfect. It's an imperfect study. I think you both recognize that with your nodding heads, right? It's 4 steps back, forward and 3 steps back and 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But it's that constant effort and that constant focus on how do we better people? How do we better our resources? How do we drive growth? And that's what honestly gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. It was maybe Mindy or someone called it the endless game, basically.
That's a great way to put it.
This is the endless game. You know, it's which can be frustrating for me as like a perfectionist to be like, I want to do it right and get it right, but like, no, you just got to keep playing the game.
And some levels of the game are so dumb. They take too long.
Yes,
they do.
So I think of operations as an interesting role because in some ways, I think of operations as like very big picture in terms of like how do we get this whole thing to work and run, but then it also involves a lot of tinkering, like detail in the weeds and things like that.
That's great.
How do you manage kind of like the big picture, but also like just the day-to-day operational things that need to get done? How do you kind of balance both of those things at the same time?
It's a daily effort to do that. You really, that was a very poignant way of describing it, because I think you nailed it. I don't know if you've been in an operational role before, but I think I can sense that you might have.
Running your own business, you know a thing or two, it feels
Fair
like,
enough. The team around you.
Yeah.
Is a huge part of this. It's not. There's no I in team. Again, because of those life lessons I learned and management lessons I learned, I rely on those every day, and I try to get out of the way and allow team members around me to facilitate some of the nuance. I will tell you, and when I say nuance, maybe let's just call it in the weeds, if we would be a little bit more colloquial. A lot of my thoughts every day are managing people and managing strategic direction. You're right. But if you don't have the credibility amongst your team that you know that individual can get in the weeds, then you're not going to have the impact and the trust factor that when they're jumping in the weeds on your behalf, they know, hey, Wes is going to know what I'm doing, and I want to do a good job. And I felt that way. I've been in that position. In fact, I would argue I'm still in that position. But for me, it's a great point. It's how do you work the balance of not being so deep in the weeds that now you are micromanaging, now you are eliminating the ability of the people that work for you to really create their own innovative ways of answering things and solving problems, which frankly are far more superior than I could come up with. But keeping them on the path that you know you want to have, that you know you need to be on to meet your goals and to meet the firm's goals. And that's a daily struggle. It's a struggle for me personally, because I'm the kind of person, I'm a get stuff done person. So if I see something to do, I'm going to jump in and do it.
Totally.
But I know that if I do that, I'm deleveraging myself.
And you're also hurting the other person's opportunity for growth.
Bingo. Yeah.
It's a hard lesson for me.
Totally, right? It's so true, right?
We'll be right back after this short message.
Are employee benefits a headache for your company? At BenX, we simplify benefits so you can focus on growing your business. From custom benefit solutions to cutting-edge technology, we make it easy for companies to take care of their teams. Visit BenXConsulting.com to see how we can simplify benefits for your growing company.
Your story is powerful, but is it reaching the right audience? At Filmspire, we create compelling videos and provide marketing strategies to make sure they drive real results. From crafting your message to amplifying it, we help you connect with your audience like never before. Ready to inspire? Let's tell your story. And now, back to the show.
One of the things my mom's always told me, and it's something that stuck with me my entire life, is she said, when you're talking to someone, always think about what they're thinking about. Always think about how they look at the world. Always think about, be respectful of other people's viewpoints. And that's so true in corporate. It's true in personal life. It's when you're sitting with someone, think about, what pressures do they have? What needs do they have, et cetera? And so when you're going into your point, Christian, you're saying, okay, I'm going to go do that work. I'm not so much thinking about the person that was eager to do that work and maybe have an opportunity to think something more broadly. And so I'm taking that away, and you don't want to do that, but you want to provide enough guidance and enough confidence with those folks that they feel like he's got my back. I've got the ability now to take some chances and to have some conversations on my own. And I'm not perfect at this, right? So it's day to day. Yeah.
Wow. As I think a lot of people listening, and even a lot of people that we've interviewed, they have leadership teams. Maybe the leadership team is 3, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 7, obviously depending on the size of the organization. One of the things that I'm fascinated with is, so you're the COO, you have there's a president at Cary Street, there's a CEO, and I'm sure there's others on the leadership team. How do you differentiate the roles? How do you own the role? What's the clarity within the role? Do you guys have like a defined scope? Is it something like, hey, Wes handles these 3 items, the president handles these 4? How do you differentiate between your leadership team based on like the clarity and ownership of the role?
Yeah, it's a great question. Roles and responsibilities and defining them are critical, to your point. We have an executive committee at our firm. It's led by our CEO, Joe Schmuckler, and president's on there. I'm on there. Our chief marketing officer, Paige Garrigan, head of HR, our chief investment officer. People kind of generally, what I'll say, know their lanes on that executive committee. But importantly, there's a sense of intellectual honesty and what I like to say, I call it radical candor. I'm probably stealing that from something I saw. But the reality is we have an environment where everyone can speak their mind. We have, in fact, interestingly, we literally just had an executive committee meeting yesterday. And in that meeting, people are challenged. So these are the leaders of the firm, and we're all challenging each other. Have you thought about this? Here are my concerns. And the interesting thing about our firm is that while we're continuing to grow, we're trying to stay very intimate with our executive committee because at some level, everyone in the firm reports to somebody in that room. And if we can confirm that and have the trust factor amongst the team to be honest with each other, then we can, quote unquote, go into their lane, but without making them feel like we're chomping on their feet. And that's a challenge, and that's a constant challenge as well. But it is definitely, I mean, titles matter. The chief operating officer is an interesting title because I kind of know everything for the most part going on, and communication is key as well. I mean, it's the old adage, right? Communication wins or loses in the end of the day, and great communication wins. And it's that, but even if you communicate and you communicate honestly, but you don't have that trust factor, the message won't land. Mm-hmm. And so we try really hard to drive that trust factor amongst our team. And that's a culture in our firm that I'm really proud of. And when we take on new individuals or individuals join us and partner with us, I mean, our name is Cary Street Partners Wealth Management. We like that name. We like that word in our name because partnership at its core is understanding that you may disagree with my viewpoint, but we can have that conversation, and together with that disagreement, we're getting better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want, yes women and yes men in our organization. We want people that are challenging the status quo. It goes back to that continuous improvement. It's how do you, and we're not perfect at it again, but how do you continue to drive that conversation? Mm-hmm. And it's a great point. You have to have both. They're not mutually exclusive. You have to have people that kind of know what their responsibilities are, but have a willingness to listen to others that they know can opine on certain things that have an impact on each of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
I
think Robert Bowling with Child Savers, one of our past guests, he called those fierce conversations.
Yeah.
I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, being able to have like the
honest.
I'm going to be honest.
Like,
you're going to be honest with me, basically. Let's just get in there and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And the growth that comes from that, basically, it can be painful.
How do you build that? Because it's a lot easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have an honest team. We open up to each other. But how? I'm sure you guys do things that are practical. That's like helps to build that trust or build that culture within the firm.
We definitely have a formal structure that allows us to come together, and without that effort to meet with a certain cadence and be intentional about it, we wouldn't be able to have the open dialogue and the continuous improvement effort that we drive every day. Our pace of growth also really requires it. But I would make an argument that it's not the structure that drives that result. It's the moments when things are seeming tough. And it's the quiet moments that you don't know at the moment that they're happening, but when you look back on them and you're together and you sit in a car and you've been driving around and you've been seeing 5 different teams and you're meeting and you're exhausted and you're having those moments where you're building trust without even necessarily saying anything to each other. It's knowing that you were on the wall together. And nobody was complaining about the role on the wall. They were all just fighting for the same goal. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be dialogue that articulates that. It's just action. Mm-hmm. And it's sensing, it's that subconscious action saying, I've seen this. I know that they'll have my back. I've been there. That's how our team operates. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You have to have both.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point. I think I spoke with Paige, months ago because Brian Forrester with Workshop Digital, I think, did a lot of your all's website and web work and things like that. And so Paige and I have been talking about Filmspire at some point. But I was just very funny to talk to them like about marketing perspective for them, because of just like so much of what you have to do at Cary Street Partners is obviously cater to and care about your advisors and things like that. Like there's a whole recruiting process, like serving them. And then obviously your advisors have their own book of business and things like that. So it's like, it's very interesting level of like, it's not just like, you know, you have C-suite and then employees and then you're serving your customers, but it's like, it's almost more nuanced basically, it seems. So how are you making sure that, that your vision for Cary Street Partners is being carried through to your advisors? And then how is that ethos being carried from the advisors to who they're serving, their clients, their things like that? Those kind of that 3-tier system, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think about this. I wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about these things. It's such a great point. When I mentioned earlier in the conversation that with the level of consolidation and the pace of growth that's happening in the firm right now, what's driven a lot of this is if you go back 15 years ago, et cetera, a lot of the advisors now that have independent practices were at wirehouses. They were at large banks, et cetera. And what inevitably happened was there was what I'll call cross-product selling or cross-pollination. So there was what the industry would refer to as a lack of independence. Meaning, you're at a firm, but you have to sell mortgage product there, or there's quotas that go beyond the mandate of serving the client and staying universally focused on serving the client, allowing them to meet their financial objectives. With the shift to independence, it hits right at what you're talking about, Taylor, which is how do you build an environment where people can come to our firm and not feel like, in fact, I would say not feel like they lose that independence, but I would say they gain independence.
Right.
But that creates complexity because now you have teams that are coming here managing clients in very different ways.
Right. They have their own little microculture and things like that. Yep.
And what has to happen is there has to be a strong enough company culture that aligns with the individual team's culture, which is honesty and collaboration and all of the things that you want in an organization. If you don't have that alignment, meaning if your thought is you're going to come to Cary Street and you're not really going to do you're not going to utilize the resources that we offer. You're not going to have open dialogue with our CIO about all the different investment solutions. You're not going to meet with our head of wealth planning and talk about all the different planning solutions you have because it's like, well, I kind of know what I'm doing. I got my role. I'm going to stay in my corner. It will break. There's no culture that will solve that because it takes both sides, right? It's again, not mutually exclusive. You really need both the team and the firm to be in alignment, but at the same time provide enough flexibility to say, while we're in alignment, we're not going to tell you this is the investment solution you need. This is how you need to meet with the client. This is how frequently you need to meet with the client. There are regulatory requirements around this. Sure. You have to meet with a client once a year, of course. But at the end of the day, there's a trust. I go back to the T word, trust, right? And it's how do you put enough trust into those teams and be thoughtful about the people that are joining you, that they recognize we can make them better without changing everything they're doing.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of that with data. So it's one thing to sit in front of someone and say, hey, let me tell you about a team that we have in our Virginia Beach office and some of the successes they've had. And that matters. Those are anecdotal and that matters to the individual teams. But another thing is to say, here's the growth rates of the teams that we have that are meeting with this frequency or leaning into the resources that the firm provides. And I'm just going to straight up give you the data. And I'm going to tell you that here's how you compare, not in a punishing way or negative way, but in a constructive way to say, have you thought about these other areas? And if your mindset is, I'm not open to that conversation, we're not going to succeed together. If your mindset is, yes, I would like to at least learn, but it doesn't mean I'm going to say yes, That's all I'm asking for, right? Because I want to have that open mind. And frankly, they may come and say, have you thought about this? And then they make us better as a firm. I mean, that happens all the time. We have advisors join us. They bring new creative ways of managing things or new systems or new processes, and we implement them firm-wide.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Like, we are not a rigid environment where it's our way or the highway, because you don't adapt, you don't evolve. One of the great things about our growth is that we have new insights, new views. We can be collaborative and adopt a lot of these new ideas that we didn't have before, and that is part of our ethos as well. It goes back to the continuous improvement. It goes back to caring. It goes back to all of our mission to support our client. And remember, our client is two constituencies, right? They're our in-fee paying client, but they're also our advisors.
Right.
My mindset is, if you look at every great company, every company that I truly respect, they stay universally focused on the client experience.
Yeah.
And they don't lose sight of that. And all of their resources every day are focused on, how do I enhance and better that client experience? And if we're all on the same page on that, we're going to be successful.
Yeah. Wow. So nuanced. That's crazy. It's crazy, because we work a lot with Raymond James teams and things like that, like doing projects, and every brand story, whatever we do, is so unique to that team, right? Because their own little microculture is so unique, but it still has to kind of fall in line with the Raymond James ethos and feels and things like that. So it's just so funny, just the different cultures that come up, basically. But yet you guys still have to work as a team and as a unit all together. Yeah.
And every team is at various levels within that kind of slope, right?
Yep.
Within that trajectory. Some they're 110% bought in.
Yeah.
Some are 99% bought in. Some are 50% bought in.
Yeah.
And it's a process. And
totally.
Changing people's behavior. One of my favorite books is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I'll tell you a funny joke. It's reflective of me. I thought it was Atomic Habits, like huge explosive ideas that you could
Atomic
change.
Bombs.
Yes, exactly. And I realized, oh wait,
6 push-ups.
It's the atom level changes that you can make.
The atomical level.
Exactly. And so that was a fun surprise.
Amazing.
But in a good way, in that I said, isn't that kind of true of everything in life? Like, nothing changes what you're doing today is not going to radically change tomorrow.
Right.
It's all the little things you do with consistency and process build into the result you want.
Yes.
And, one of the things that we do as leaders, and I try extremely hard to do this, is I don't have an expectation that I'm going to have a conversation with you and tomorrow you're going to look exactly how I want you to look. Right. But if I see engagement and I sense that there is that recognition, I'm focusing on those atomic level changes that lead to positive outcomes. In our industry, we talk a lot about AUM and revenue, but those are the outputs.
Not the inputs.
Not the inputs. We are trying so hard to now start to measure the inputs.
Because those create, spot on.
Bingo.
Yeah.
We switched to that 6 months ago at BenX.
So smart.
Because we're measuring revenue and measuring growth and this and that. It's like, why are we measuring something, A, we can't really control, right? But also B, is a complete byproduct of these, let's just call it 5 actions or whatever it might be before. Let's just measure those,
exactly.
Right? Or the client experience, right? Like, to get a really upset client, typically it's not like you dropped the ball one time, right?
That's right.
Because people make mistakes, and I think people give grace for that. But typically it's like, hey, well, you dropped the ball here, and then you told me the wrong thing here, and then you did this, right? So by the time you get a really frustrated client, typically there's been a few checkpoints before that.
That's right.
Let's measure those before we measure the frustrated clients. But yeah, I think you're spot on. One of my favorite quotes, it's 2 words: consistency compounds.
Oh, I love that.
And it does.
That's great. Yeah.
It's from Nick Bear, who I follow a lot. But
that's great.
It does.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Even little things.
Yeah. And it's life is all about the expectation that someone has and then the result that they experience. If you, we talk about this a lot too. If you set expectations that are unachievable, you will have perpetually disappointed and unhappy workforce, perpetually unhappy advisors, and perpetually unhappy clients. So to your point, clients don't leave because of one bad conversation. They leave because of a series of unmet expectations. And having those conversations with clients to ensure you're meeting their expectations. It's funny, in our industry, I find I feel like it should be a mandate. Anytime you meet with a client, every single meeting say, did this meet your expectations? But be honest. Did this meeting meet your expectations? And if not, what can we do to change that? You basically would never lose a client.
Right.
Barring a passing away
Unless
or something like that, right? Something out of the control. And yet, I think a lot of advisors are scared to know the answer. It's like, why do you not want to ask that question? And I think some of them are scared that they're going to hear that they're not. And they don't like they look at it as almost rejection. It's like, that's an opportunity. Yeah. Not a rejection. That's an opportunity to lean in and then go meet those expectations. And that's true at the advisor to client level. It's true at the leadership to employee level. It's true at this level we're having right now. It's fascinating, the psychology of decision making.
Yes,
we have to start implementing that. I like that.
Absolutely. Well, we try in my sales process. I talk a lot about mutual agreements, being like, okay, so here's what we're going to talk about today. We're like prepping them and like, here's what's going to happen, the results. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like, does that sound good? Can we move forward with that, basically? And being like at the end, like, okay, what's our next mutual agreement? What are we going to commit to next? What are we going to do next? And things like that, and just kind of know. But getting that feedback is huge. Being like, yeah, did this meet your expectations? Did we meet what we talked about, basically? Is this in line with what you envisioned and what you hoped for, basically?
Yeah.
Because you're right. It could feel like rejection. Absolutely. I could totally get that. But
they're thinking it anyway.
Yeah.
When you were saying it, I was like, it's not really rejection. The rejection is the fact that they're thinking it anyways, I guess. Not rejection, but the negative connotations is they're thinking it anyways.
Right.
So by you asking, you're not really getting rejection. You're really just getting the truth.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we might start implementing that. That's good.
So I have a question. Anytime anyone asks you a question and you get to provide your perspective, don't you like that? Generally speaking, people want to have an open forum to provide their perspective. So I see any opportunity that you have to provide your perspective. You may say a perspective that I don't even want to hear, but I probably need to hear it. Because if I don't hear it, I don't know it. And then I don't know how to pivot. Or at least make a decision, do I want to pivot or not? And this goes back to another leadership element that I come across a lot is we have to say no a fair amount. And that's not easy for me. I don't like to say no. But
I don't either. Yeah,
but
it's hard.
You can't, we as you mentioned, Taylor, we serve a lot of masters. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean, we're trying to elevate. With 37 teams, we're about to have 40. You're constantly trying to satisfy the needs and expectations of a huge group of people that are wildly divergent in some cases in what their needs are at that time. And sometimes you have to have a hard conversation and just say, we can't do this anymore. We're moving beyond this. And that's part of also not being torn apart by all the different ways of thinking. You've got to keep enough of a signal and enough of a push towards a certain direction. But you just have to be intellectually honest and radically honest. Intellectually, radical candor and having that conversation with the team and say, I hear you, I see your perspective, but it's not the way we're going to move here.
Yeah. Totally.
And I know it may not be news you want to hear, but I'll give you the reasons why I view it this way. Because, and by the way, I've given you the platform to tell me why you don't view it this way, and I'm telling you why I do, and we'll have to agree to disagree. Again, it's a hard conversation, but it's critical to growth.
But I even think that conversation is better than them sharing their perspective and then it falling on flat ears.
Totally.
Right? Like if I'm thinking like at previous jobs, I have shared perspective. No, we'll get to that. Or it sounds good, right? And then 6 months goes by and you don't hear anything. I even think that the conversation up front is it's even though it might be a little tougher, it's better than you just like keeping someone's hopes up or saying like, we're gonna look into that,
Yeah.
Knowing you're not gonna look into that.
It's the easy out.
Yeah.
It's that's a great idea. Let me take a look at that. And I've done it. I've done it many times, and I've left the meeting and I've thought that was unfair.
Yeah.
Because the likelihood of something like that getting implemented is extremely low. And I've called someone back and said, listen, I know we just ended this conversation, but I think I need to clarify my points. And by that, I mean, I need to change what I said to you because it was unfair, because I gave you an expectation that maybe isn't realistic. That's a hard call to make.
Yeah.
But
it is a hard call.
But I feel better about making that call because I feel like if going back to my mom's old statement, think about the way people are interpreting, I go back to that conversation and I say, what would I want if I was in their position? I just want the honest truth. One
of my favorite questions to ask is if you could talk to Wes, let's just say 7 years ago, right before you joined Cary Street Partners.
Yeah.
What are, doesn't have to be a lot, but what are a couple tips or tricks or pieces of advice you would give Wes in 2019, knowing what you know today, hindsight being 2020?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a great question. I would say number one would be lead with humility. Lead with humility. Recognize that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And as a perfectionist, I want to get everything right every time. And don't let the reality that that's not realistic impact your desire to continue to grow and drive. And so I'd say that's probably number one. Another way to put that is eat last, right? When things go well in a meeting, give all the kind of adulation and the praise to the team. And when things don't go poorly, prepare to take responsibility and say, and I think that's foundational for leadership. Another would be recognize where people are in their lives and recognize that some of them may not be as comfortable or willing or interested in moving into future roles that you envision for them, but they may not envision for themselves. We have some people and they're wonderful employees, wonderful team members, but they have no interest in managing people.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
Yeah. Totally. And I naively assume, well, this is the growth path. This is the growth trajectory. And that's been a good life lesson for me. And it goes back to the meeting people where they want to be met and just recognizing that different people have different objectives and appreciating those objectives. And then I'd say the third thing is just operate with grace. There's going to be a lot of expectations, a lot of changes in life. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. And by the way, I'm not perfect at this, but by any stretch. But try to stay level-headed. Keep the process. Stay focused on the process. The atomic changes that happen that lead to positive outcomes. But I'm an emotional person. People joke at work that Wes is bringing the energy this morning, and when I try intentionally to talk less, which obviously I've failed already in this pod today, or to let others take the spotlight, they're like, "What's wrong with Wes this morning? I don't know what's going on." And so
it's tough night.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's an effort. It's a constant effort to improve myself, but also to better everyone.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah,
I've gotten that feedback a couple times when I'm just like kind of normal, or I'm just just kind of hanging out. They're like, "What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
you're not hype, or you're not like energetic.
Yeah.
What's wrong?"
And I'm like, I can't be 100% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
How about you? I mean, what's if you think about yourself?
Oh, that's a great
7
question.
years ago. What would be your messages to younger Christian?
Wow, that's a good question. I would even say, like, even if you put 5 years ago, right? Because 5 years ago, I'm doing the same thing, but not on my own, right? Or similar thing.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
In the industry, with plans to, maybe at some point, who knows? And then the timeline kept getting, shorter and shorter, and the Band-Aid was just finally ripped off, and you just jump. But but you experienced that too. I would say a couple things. One, patience. As simple as that sounds, just like, especially when you start something or when you have a lot of energy, I think that's a beautiful thing, but you have to balance that energy and like that drive and passion with the outlook that it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. So easy to say, so hard
Oh my
to do.
gosh. Yeah. It's like, cause anytime you're fired up about something, maybe it's a new campaign, maybe it's change, maybe it's growth. It's like, be fired up, like absolutely, but also balance that with like the grace and the patience and the time, because like it's always going to take longer than you think.
Yeah.
There's always going to be more mistakes down the road.
So true.
And so that'd be one of the biggest things I think I would tell myself is keep the energy, keep the passion, keep the fire, but don't let it consume you, and understand that it takes time.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
It really is. Because you don't want to be too far here, and you do not want to be too far here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
But also just to like, especially for me, it's a big faith perspective as well. And so just relying on what I can personally control.
Yep.
Because when I started BenX and even before that with my career, because I want to grow, right? Energy. And there's just so many things that are outside of your control.
Yeah.
And really, it took me a while to understand that, like, and I still struggle with it, but really put those inputs, put those things that you can control, and then focus on those, right? Don't focus on the percentage of growth. Don't focus on the revenue. Yes, we can have goals and targets, but focus on what you can actually control. At least that keeps me sane most of the time.
Yeah. Truer words have never been spoken. I mean, I live that every day. I actually should probably remind myself of that every morning, to be honest, because
I should have a note card.
It's not going to stop, right? I mean, those are enduring approaches, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
Gonna do a couple fun questions.
Let's do it.
We like to do a couple fun questions.
Okay.
So we'll do a nonprofit shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your go-to Richmond restaurant? Or couple, you can name a couple, because all of our guests, when we ask this question, they never name one. That's always multiple. So, what are a couple of your go-to spots?
I'd say the best meal I've had in Richmond was at La Possum.
Oh, I still want to go there.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
I've not.
Tremendous.
I still want to go
tremendous food.
It's French, right?
It's art. I mean, it's art. It's. I mean, Thomas Balloud would be impressed. I think I would say the Grisette. I love Grisette up here, right up Church Hill.
Yeah.
I love Grisette.
Yeah. Alewife, I mean, right across the street. Church Hill's an amazing place because I'm so fascinated by this region, and I totally fall in love with Richmond. I think I was telling you this, Taylor. It's interesting. I was in Austin in the late '90s, early 2000s, before it became Austin of today.
Yeah,
because that was when I was first starting to go to school and in college, and I see what's happening to Richmond, not to terrify all the Richmonders, but I would tell you that there are a lot of similarities and parallels with what I see, what happened in Austin in 25 years. You're seeing, I mean, you've got tremendous institutions all around you. You've got tremendous talent leaving, and they used to go to New York and LA and DC and Charlotte, but now they're staying at home, and that's going to provide this wellspring of growth. And I'm just so excited for Richmond. But I'm trying to find a way. How can I continue to immerse myself in this growth, but not see a tail light when I'm driving to work in the morning?
Yeah,
and that's the tough part. But I digress. So I'd say those are great. But Richmond's got a phenomenal food scene.
It does.
Yeah, I mean,
really
Boss Letter has now started, and that's phenomenal.
It's a great spot.
There's just so many, and even just small ones you don't even know.
Yeah,
like Portico even.
Portico out on River. Yeah,
it's one of our favorites.
We just went to the stables on Belmont.
Yes, that's terrific as well.
I was like, that was fantastic. I mean, it's just home run after home run.
So good, just makes you want to punch a wall. It's
like you're cooking at home. You're just like, this is embarrassing. I know what I could be eating in the city.
Exactly. Oh man, it's almost overwhelming, basically at times. Yeah. If you weren't doing this, if you weren't director of operations, chief of operations, you weren't in this industry, what would you be doing?
Wow. It's an interesting question. I've been so long in this industry that it's hard to kind of answer. I would say, the dynamics would have to be different, but I love teaching.
Cool. Yeah.
I love the feeling of engaging with someone and watching growth, whether it's through my efforts, through their efforts. Typically it's a combination, but seeing that growth is one of the things that I get really excited about. And I think that's something that teachers at their core also are passionate about. Now, there's a lot of dynamics around teachers. We don't have enough time to get into that, which kind of subdues some of that passion. But my kids go to a great school. It's called St. Michael's Episcopal School, and we love it. And the teachers that you meet there are so passionate about their job. And I could see myself in a role where I get to immerse myself in students' growth. And I like the research aspect to things. So when I was at UT, University of Texas, I always have to say University of Texas, otherwise people are going to think I'm talking about Tennessee Balls. That was a change when I moved out to the Mid-Atlantic. But the tenured professors, they still had a passion for teaching, but then they also got to influence their industry, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So they had that ability to do both and concurrently, and that was exciting. So
Yeah. Fun fact, I just learned that the author of Lord of the Rings was a tenured professor at Oxford. I think it was tenured, but he was a professor at Oxford.
Wow.
I didn't know that until yesterday. Yes.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
He was I think he was tenured. He was an Oxford professor for a long time. And then he did like the side project. Was Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the other I would say is maybe a chef.
Okay. Ooh. Speaking of food, speaking of restaurants.
I was between sophomore and junior year. My wife still jokes with me about this, but I read the Le Cordon Bleu cookbook. It was about this thick, and I learned about consommes and all kinds of other ways to prepare food. My dad grew up in an environment where both my parents were excellent chefs, and so having that, my dad actually started a restaurant, which is a tough industry to succeed in, by the way.
But talk about thin margins.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes.
Especially in Richmond right now, too.
With the food, everything else. But I would say that, and I would change my name to Daniel Boulud so Thomas Boulud doesn't get yelled at me. I was thinking of Thomas Keller and Daniel Boulud, and I merged the two, and I've been thinking about that ever since. I'm probably getting in trouble, but but needless to say, that would probably be my second. That might probably be my second option. I actually thought seriously about going to the French Culinary Institute and leaving business school at one point, and I was given great advice. I was at a local restaurant in Austin, and I went to meet the chef, and the chef said, "You're crazy." Like, you are absolutely crazy for even thinking about this. Yeah. And he said, "I love what I do, but you're crazy." And he told me all the reasons why what you see on Food TV and Bobby Flay and everything else going on is not quite what the day-to-day is. And that was a great maturing and learning experience for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
You still have time.
I still have time. That's
still have time.
In my next life. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess to wrap it up, we want to make a small donation to the nonprofit of your choosing. I know you shouted them out earlier, but if you want to give a quick plug one more time and
I
talk
went
about
early.
Yeah.
So obviously we're huge fans of Connor's Heroes. For those that don't know them, they support pediatric cancer families and just do a phenomenal job of being present, but not so present that it's overwhelming. We've gone to their art balls a number of times, and the level of giving and support is just so impactful. It's something that we'll continue to. Having been personally impacted by this, it obviously hits a chord, but we'll continue to support them in ways that we can. And I would encourage any family that's going through that. It's a tough time, but stay positive and rely on resources like those organizations. It's a big deal, and they just provide that, those late nights and hard days, and they provide you with just a little bit of energy and optimism and support. I'd say a lot of it of energy, optimism, and support while you're kind of going through that path and that journey.
Wow,
that is awesome.
Yeah, and thank you, by the way,
for that. Absolutely. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Wes, how can people get in touch with you or connect with you or Cary Street? Let us know. How can we...
This camera.
Yeah, absolutely. CaryStreetPartners.com. Contact us. My email's on there. My phone number may still be. That's a Paige question, but like we talked about roles and responsibilities, I stay out of Paige's lane on that stuff. But look, we are building something really special at Cary Street, and I'm biased, of course, but I think if you're looking for financial support, you have some concerns about, for a variety of reasons, meeting your financial goals, depending on where you are in life. Think about a professional advisor. It doesn't have to be Cary Street. Just think about the value that advisor brings, that, someone that you like, they become in many ways a financial advocate, a financial therapist. I refer to myself as a certified financial therapist in many respects, because a lot of it is talking through issues and talking through fears, et cetera. And we have a wonderful team of advisors that would love to support any client that wants to work with us. But, more than anything, the important thing is build that peace of mind into your journey as a client and as an individual. There's a lot changing. The world is changing. The regulatory environment is changing. And so, think about that. I almost bet you if you have any level of financial complexity, it would be tremendously valuable to you. And we'd love to help where we can.
Awesome.
Love it. Well, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
And
Wes,
thank Hannah for connecting us.
Yes.
Hannah's great.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Wes. We appreciate it.
Thanit's for having me. Really appreciate it. Appreciate
it's been
the
awesome.
time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.